What's going on, all you Staten Island enthusiasts?
Oh,
Your two favorite peacocks are back tonight. We're covering the brand new original Peacock series, now streaming. Pete Davidson starring in Bupkis.
do as I say, not as I do.
What they gonna do? What they gonna say? I just want like a regular type life.
We're in comedy. You gotta be able to walk away from anything in your life in 30 seconds flat. That's why I got nothing tying me down.
You're a kid.
Oh, yeah.
This is all Bupkis. It means absolutely nothing. And that's what Bupkis means. I had to look it up, what the actual meaning behind the term is. And it pretty much sums up this show. It's a fictionalized version of Pete Davidson's life. It's heightened reality. And he brings a lot of friends along and a couple of great actors, which drew us into the series. You know, we weren't huge Pete Davidson fans by any stretch. He, was good in The King of Staten Island. But I had heard this was a comedy, and Joe Pesci and Edie Falco were both in it, playing his mom and grandpa in the show. So I was in with that and wanted to check it out, and was happy with the results. Had a great, easy binge, and laughed my ass off along the way.
Bupkis, the show, you're telling me about it. I knew nothing about this series. I thought it was a movie. So that's how out of it I was about
Yeah.
this release. And you said Pete Davidson, at that point didn't give a shit. And then you said Joe Pesci, one of our favorite actors of all time, returning to act as Joe Pesci that we all remember and love, as an older version of that, playing his grandpa Joe, going to him, for life advice and what to do with his life. And, Pesci is always just so disappointed in Peter, as he likes to call him in the show. He's just a big fuck up, and he keeps making mistakes after mistakes. And Pesci, his grandpa, is trying to tell him to do something nice for somebody else instead of Pete always being so selfish. So that really kind of sets that up in the first episode, and the rest of the supporting cast, like you said, Edie Falco, come on, Carmela, The Sopranos, greatest show of all time, returning as Pete's mom. And really funny setup in the first episode with some VR, and I'll say it about jerking off, and I'll leave it at that. And then it just gets more wild and ridiculous as the first few episodes go through. But the first episode really caught my attention. I was laughing my ass off the entire time. Usually not a fan of Davidson's comedy, but I thought that the entire cast was just like phenomenal.
A lot of fun in this series. This series reminded me a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm, where that one's about Larry David, and obviously, a take on his life and the certain situations he gets him in. This is very much a look at Pete Davidson's life, constantly in the news, all over TMZ, doing something stupid, dating the next, big celebrity, seemingly out of his league, getting busted for drugs, going to rehab. This is very much looking at that. And pretty much it starts out, he's having a lot of fun. And then as the series goes on, he's like making these mistakes. He can't figure things out. He has something going on in his head that he can't quite figure out what's going on, and making him do these things that are getting him into trouble. And it very much is analyzing himself through this show. We see some other great actors along the way. Bobby Cannavale, another awesome addition to the cast. I think it's his uncle in the show. There's a funny episode where it's a flashback on young Pete and his sister and his mom, and they're at a wedding. And, wise Uncle Bobby is there. And there's some funny scenes in a car. Not to spoil anything, but there's some really great scenes between them, with Ray Romano, Brad Garrett. The list goes on and on. He brought over some people from SNL too, Kenan Thompson, and you'll see some other faces that we won't spoil here. But I had a lot of fun with this. I didn't know what to expect going in. I figured it was going to be a comedy, but this is also a drama too. It looks at all aspects of Pete's life and why he gets all this attention, and somewhat, the media's hard on him. And you can see where, from his perspective, like, he doesn't deserve all that hate for sure. He's a kid that lost his dad in a traumatic way, and he's been dealing with that ever since, trying to get out of kind of the shadow of what happened to his dad and become this established comedian, getting in a lot of trouble, being young, but, overcoming that. As this first season winds out, and it ends on a cliffhanger. So I'm assuming that we're going to see another second season, and I hope we do. I really enjoyed this. Great acting, great performances, funny, hilarious, off the wall comedy. Joe Pesci was great. Edie Falco was great. Yeah, I had a great time with Bupkis.
A few other actors that small parts in the series, which was really funny. John Mulaney being one, like his friend. Charlie Day playing his therapist. I always loved old Charlie showing up along the way. Machine Gun Kelly, forgettable like always. But and the Simon Rex was probably my favorite episode, the Fast and the Furious episode, without giving too much away. But that's crispy.
Crispy. You want to see the Crispies?
Yeah, just ridiculous and what you want, something just off the wall ridiculous. Just want to have a good time with it. And that's what they did with that episode. The last two were more dramatic compared to the rest, which is more like comedy, but there's some dark comedy in there as well. But really compelling story. Not a fan of Pete Davidson, never have been, but I really like this series. I think he did a really good job. He was co-wrote this series and starring in it about his life. I thought he did a great job. Supporting cast is great across the board, but Joe Pesci really sold it for me. And all the episodes that he was in, Edie Falco just being amazing. Per usual, Brad Garrett was also good. Not a fan of his normally, but I thought he was good in this. And of course, Ray Romano, the memorable episodes in this. But just really great performances. This is a look at, substance abuse and mental health and, very lighthearted at times and really pulls on your heartstrings and brings you in as an audience. And I was very impressed with this series and, a series that I highly recommend that's streaming on Peacock. So that being said, I'm going to give Bupkis a 4 out of 5 Ray Romano hairpieces.
And I, too, am going to give Bupkis season 1 a 4 out of 5 Joe Pesci hairpieces. I liked when they went back in time and tried to make him younger, but he looked even older somehow. It just looked awkward.
What did you say? He looked like a corpse?
He looked like a corpse that had the white makeup on the face. It made him look really pale and almost dead like.
Yeah, he did. It looked like a creep show character or something.
Right,
He looked scary.
He did.
When they just de-age him and spend the $15 million to use the technology to do that.
Exactly. Peacock's got the money. I mean, they don't have any other gigantic original streaming shows. This is one of the first shows on Peacock that I've watched. Obviously they have The Office. People are watching that. Of course, that's still raking in the dough. That's one of the, biggest series of all times. But being new, I think they have a hit here. I'm hoping that the viewership was high and that we hear, some good news on a season 2, because it was good. It was funny. And like you mentioned, just our brand of comedy, the kind of comedy that we love. And we think you guys will really enjoy it too. We want to hear what you guys thought of Bupkis season 1. Let us know in the comments. What were your favorite kind of lines and jokes from the series? I liked in the first episode when Pete was kind of humping for Brad Garrett, trying to have sex for him on the bed. He had to move Brad Garrett. He was having sex with a prostitute. He couldn't move. And he was controlling him like a robot. It was pretty funny. And along the series, we also saw Shane Gillis show up. I love that comedian. He's hilarious. He was driving the Mini Cooper in that Fast and Furious episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So just out there, just the kind of craziness that you'd expect from Pete Davidson. Great seeing Joe Pesci again, man. He really did a great job in this series. I like seeing him as the grandpa, the wise old grandpa, trying to get Pete in touch with his life and get his life together. So thank you guys so much for watching our review of Bupkis season 1. It's streaming on Peacock. Until the next Cinephellas TV review, I'm Henry Davidson.
And I'm Uncle Logan Bupkis, signing out until the next TV review.
Cheers.